Praise be Jesus Christ, and onward with Mary. Today, May 18th, 2022, around 2 p.m., I heard by phone from the Chancellor of the Archiepiscopal Curia of Palermo, informing me that he needed to meet with me to deliver to me the document signed by Bergoglio of dismissal to the lay state. This communication needs my signature and delivery by them of the administrative sanction. I have already communicated to the Chancellor just now that I will not sign the sanction or withdraw it, neither I nor any of my collaborators. The sanction, in fact, is a blatant abuse of office, a shameful and malicious instrumentalization of the Code of Canon Law, a wicked as much as irrational will of Bergoglio to hit me for the umpteenth time. I will enter in a moment into the legal disquisition around the measure that will show all its opinionated insignificance. But first, I want to emphasize how, thanks to my sacrifice of which I was aware, it comes out quite clearly now that the so-called Pope of Dialogue and Mercy, in reality, is a cruel killer on the moral plane of anyone who questions the legitimacy of his false role. When, as I have done in these years of personal via crucis, one argues with data, texts, laws, documented evidence, dossiers certified by provable and overwhelming evidence in favor of the argument, the first thing to do, and I say the first, and I am ashamed to have to say this in regard to this false church, the first thing to do is not and cannot be to sanction abusing the laws of the church. The first thing to do is to respond to doubts, to reply paternally and patiently to the possible detractor, not to crucify him without trial. The unscrupulous usurper who signed my dismissal condemnation now shows his true definitive face. Bergoglio is cruel. He is far from true reality. He is closed in on himself. He is a cynical man, like the worst dictators in history, with the aggravation of a hypocritical mask of a man of dialogue that the media fixes to him, sold out as they are to powerful forces. I find the treatment meted out to me utterly singular. No canonical process, no paternal initiative outside of canon law. Given that Bergoglio declares himself a man of the gospel, of confrontation on the merits of the issues put forward, no slightest paternal or pontifical attempt to alleviate the dispute, rather to sharpen it. This treatment, which obviously delivers to me a crucifying primacy, has seen even Luther spared, whom not only Pope Leo X tried to reason with, but whom Bergoglio has, I would say ludicrously, presented no less than as a holy reformer. Why then this treatment of Father Minutella? If Bergoglio removes Luther's excommunication and gives two to Father Minutella, if Bergoglio considers Luther a holy reformer and reduces Father Minutella to the lay state, why? Why? Who is the director of what has been happening in recent years to yours truly? Canonical sanctions, as never happened in the Church's biennial history against a cleric, without control and measure. Sentences free of pastoral and legal balance. Constant censorship and hacking. Moral persecution warped through the media. Increasing isolation. Media lynching and sieges of journalists under the house. Thirsty as ferocious beasts. Latent threats. 2 criminal prosecutions. And soon, I believe, confiscation of property. Who is so far the director of all this? Who is it that really fears Father Minutella, this small, inoffensive priest from the fringes, who all over the world is gathering support around Benedict XVI, showing how the other one, so-called Francis, does not exist? The director is really him, Jorge Mario Bergoglio, who is afraid of me, and they are showing it, as the Freemasons who elected him with the St. Gallen Mafia and collaborate with him, occupying for more than 9 years the Apostolic See with the silence, at this point not only complicit, but shameful of those who stay silent. Certainly, between the forced removal as parish priest, the 2 excommunications, the suspension ad divinis, and now, no less, the reduction to the lay state, a picture emerges that even a child could interpret. On the other side of the bank, the Masonic Satanist side, which heads an increasingly undone Bergoglio. They fear him, they feel fear. They have been afraid of a little priest who, chosen from heaven, without human means, without earthly alliances, with only the strength of the love of Christ, of the cross, of Mary, is exposing before the whole world their dark plots and is openly confronting them. And so, afraid, devoid of arguments, openly disavowed, cornered, Bergoglio and the Compañeros de Satana. What do? What is the most shameful thing imaginable? They strike me by means of an instrumental and illegitimate use of ius canonicum, canon law. In the early days, when Father Minutella first came to public attention, these same people, from Bergoglio to the Freemasons who were in the Vatican on behalf of Satan, must have smiled with the sneer of those who say, "But who is this priest here? This poor guy. Let's take him out right away." Because these people know how to kill you without shedding blood. They kill you morally. And so I was sent to L'Elene, the Italian current event show, and to Rai Uno, the national TV channel, without being able to defend myself, to be presented as a criminal, demented and out of his mind, fanatical and ridiculous. The media guillotine obeyed the command of the Masonic Lider Maximo, ultimate leader, Jorge Mario Bergoglio. They snatched my parish from me overnight, and God, however, provided to me faithful all over the world. They excommunicated me 2 times. 2 times. What can it mean 2 times? Not 1 time. And God has made me a celebrated champion of the strenuous defense of the true Pope. They took away my media visibility, and God has lately provided, relative to means, simply stratospheric audience numbers. The initial sneer of buoyant success has slowly and inexorably translated for these damned Satanist Freemasons into serious and concerned expression. How has he remained standing? How is he not afraid of us? How does he hold up? And really, how does he gain strength with his ever-increasing force? I had said so, and the chorus of grumblers came at me. It is the Blessed Virgin who chose me and sent me, and I have the task, again, of hoisting the flag of authentic Catholic faith in Rome by ousting Satan and freeing the Petrine throne. Above all, they took away my salary, thinking they were leading me to ruin, but instead I live comfortably and serene, without lacking anything. I am loved and well liked by thousands and thousands of faithful in Italy and around the world. And, to be frank, this latest sanction, so shameful, is an even more solemn consecration of the divine task assigned to me. Now the confrontation becomes precisely solemn and decisive. All that remains is to offer my life. In fact, by taking off my habit, they are, despite themselves, cladding me in a new garment that the Blessed Virgin has long had ready. This cruel and cynical as well as irrational maneuver, like the others, will also backfire on them. This is the way Mary employs to punish and confront them. She humiliates them with their own weapons, alone, aged beyond recognition, deprived of real public consent, forced into a growing desertification of the faithful. They hold power by means of lies, forgeries, falsehoods, threats, and retaliation to priests and the consecrated, the faithful. Finally, violent against Father Minutella, they find themselves having to see him rise time and time again. The removed parish has become a worldwide one. Media censure has translated into excellent publicity. The excommunications have been converted in the eyes of the true faithful into honor awards. Moral lynching has forced them into partial retreat. But above all now, this dismissal to the lay state forces them, in spite of themselves, to take off their masks and reveal themselves for what they are, accursed disciples of Satan, unscrupulous Freemasons who want to destroy the Catholic faith. They who appear as the merciful lovers of dialogue, wretched apostates, so the Blessed Virgin humiliates you with your own weapons. Really, where is the mercy you preach? Where is the attempt at dialogue, at rapprochement? You approach everyone, from Muslim infidels to Jewish friends, to gays, to LGBT, to different groups of various kinds. And you throw out, just as Blessed Catherine Emmerich foresaw, those who remain Catholics. The Vatican is now a den of decrepit snakes and rotten vipers. Therefore, the reduction to the lay state. Now let's see how to explain it all to you. Canon 290 of the Code of Canon Law points out 3 reasons why this extreme penalty, considered the most serious, is given. First, the invalidity of priestly ordination. Second, the penalty of dismissal legitimately imposed. Third, with a rescript because of the most severe punishment. In this case, the first point does not concern me, having been validly ordained of a priest by the laying on of hands of a successor of the apostles in communion with the Roman Pontiff on December 27, 1999. About the second point, for one to be reduced to the lay state, the Pope must sign the document for delicta graviora, very serious crimes, such as pedophilia. In a moment, I will give you the list of crimes for which one is dismissed by the Roman Pontiff. Third, by rescript due to very serious causes, and that is, when it is the priest himself who, in short, reasonably requests the resignation. Now, as you know, the first and third points do not concern me, because neither have I been invalidly appointed, nor have I been asked to be reduced to the lay state. There remains standing then, as you see, the second point which provides, for the sanction so severe to be valid, the following crimes. First, crime of apostasy of the faith, heresy and schism. Second, desecration of the Eucharistic species. Third, physical violence against the Pope. Fourth, crime of solicitation, that is, inducing especially children to sexual acts during confession. Fifth, crime of attempted marriage. Sixth, other crimes against the Sixth Commandment, especially concubinage and homosexual acts. Have you been listening? A careful examination of the so-called delicta graviora that should concern me, because the first and third points cannot be considered and would legitimize dismissal, should convince even the most ill-disposed person this evening to retract the accusation against me. Indeed, what exactly is my crime among those mentioned? I have never profaned the Eucharist. I have never abused minors. I am not a pedophile priest. I do not lead a scandalous moral life. I have not committed crimes against the Sixth Commandment. And perhaps then they appeal, as they did for my excommunications, to the crime of apostasy, heresy, and schism. Peculiar, meanwhile, that the administrator of the act, that is Bergoglio, sits invalidly as an excommunicate on the throne of Peter, and he yet has profaned the Eucharist by bricking up alive the Eucharist miracle of Buenos Aires, and in his own words, already giving communion in Buenos Aires to remarried divorcees and people in moral disorder, and even to a Jewish woman, except then joking about it, saying Jesus was also Jewish. And I remind you that this is profanation. Giving the Eucharist to an unbaptized person is profanation of the Eucharist. Bergoglio spoke of having done this. He justified himself by smiling with Satan's grin. He was Jewish too. So it is peculiar that a profaner himself, to whom delictus gravius, or one of the delicta graviora, should be ascribed to, commits this matter to me. Peculiar again that this idolater of Pachamama in the Vatican, who orchestrated a horrid satanic liturgy in the Vatican gardens and desecrated St. Peter's Basilica, communes the reduction for apostasy to me. Now, this is what they may be arguing about, I predict. Canon 751, regarding the crime of apostasy, heresy, and schism, states, the obstinate denial, after receiving baptism, of some truth which must be believed by divine or Catholic faith, or obstinate doubt about it, is called heresy. Does it seem to you that I have ever proclaimed disobedience to a single one of the articles of faith? On the contrary, that is what I'm paying for, because I defend them. Apostasy, the total repudiation of the Christian faith. Does it ever seem to you that I have repudiated the faith? Schism, the refusal of submission to the Supreme Pontiff or communion with the members of the Church subject to him. And here is a decisive point. Where, in the first place, have I denied a single truth of faith? Then I am not a heretic. And I wonder instead, where has the cruel murder of Bergoglio respected them? Where have I repudiated the Church's bimillennial faith, and where has he trampled it instead? Have I not defended it with all my might? And why am I being sanctioned? And the German priests, who in May last year blessed gay couples at the altar in contravention of divine law, have gone unpunished? But isn't canon law also the same for everyone? Where have I refused to submit to the Pope? Instead, it is another thing to affirm, as I have been doing for years, that the reigning Pope, based on various irrefutable evidence, is Benedict XVI. And so, if the first and third grounds for such a grave condemnation fail, and so does the second, regarding the delicta graviora, exactly for what reason is the habit being taken away from me? What for exactly is my habit being taken away from me, if not for the violent and irrational abuse of the increasingly cynical old Argentine despot who has come to ruin Rome on behalf of the Satanist lodges? The list of the Argentine prelates' blatant wrongs and explicit violations is endless. Yet he has the insolence to condemn me for speaking the truth. Canon 17, I remind you, protects one who is reached by a canonical sanction. It states, ecclesiastical laws are to be understood according to the meaning of the words, considered in text and context, as if they remain doubtful or obscure. As tonight to people who do not give up, regardless of their position, to reflect, it should become clear one must have recourse to parallel places, if there are any, to the purpose and circumstances of the law and the intention of the legislator. As canonical jurisprudence teaches, it is necessary that the mind of the legislator issuing a sanction, especially if it is punitive, cannot derive from his own will or private intention the sanction itself, but from a discretionary application of the law itself. Please tell me where has this criterion been respected? Here it is totally obvious that Bergoglio has acted, and whoever else on his behalf, with a will of his own and a private intention that openly contradict the protection of the undersigned, guaranteed by canon law. I reiterate, am I liable to be dismissed from the clerical state? If I have been validly ordained, if I have demonstrated so far that I do not incur any of the delicta graviora of the second paragraph, and if I did not ask for it, I ask, where am I liable to be discharged from the clerical state, if not by that private will of the administrator himself, which, according to Canon 17, appears an abuse of power, illegitimate exercise of power. Probably the merciful Bergoglio, by arriving at this cruel and infamous act, believes he is procuring, I think, the decrease of the ever-increasing numbers of listeners. That puts fear in him, or probably my moral abasement, or perhaps neither, just blind wickedness, just blind cynicism. But neither event will occur. I prophesy, as is already happening tonight, a record number of listeners, 3,070 people, which will increase more and more. And as for me, I do not care about the sanction of a false pope, heretic, apostate, idolatrous, undone, and finished. Not only do I not get discouraged, but to stand up to Bergoglio and the damn Freemasons in power in the church. It would be helpful for them if they answered the following burning questions. Why didn't Benedict XVI hand over the munus according to Canon 332, paragraph 2? Why don't you answer the fact that the Declaratio turns out to be invalid according to Canon 332, paragraph 2? Or do you want to use damned heretics that are in the Vatican, decrepit snakes, the code as you please? Why is Cardinal Daniels, who spoke of a St. Gallen Mafia with names, places, and dates, not refuted? Why not clarify the details of the 2013 conclave? Why not address the suspicions expressed about the invalidity under John Paul II's Apostolic Constitution, Universi Dominici Gregis? Why did Benedict XVI continue to dress in white and infirm himself over time with the symbol of the reigning Pope? These and other questions, sooner or later, will doom you, because great lies, even collective lies, are revealed by history. I turn to you, Mr. Bergoglio, usurper of the Petrine throne. You have on your side the great and powerful of the world, who are slowly, however, abandoning you. You were placed in the Vatican through a coup orchestrated by the ecclesiastical Freemasons, as Cardinal Daniels was able to declare. You, perhaps, still consider yourself strong and powerful, yet senile decadence is conspicuously catching up to you. I believe that your signature on my condemnation will constitute a tragic epilogue to your sad and melancholy demise. Be assured that your cruel retaliation does not affect me in the least. I have become a nightmare for you because you have failed, for the first time in your life, to stop one of your accusers, a detector of your hidden plots. And if your power, Mr. Bergoglio, comes from the world and from Satan, since I know very well the rituals you have performed in the past, just say that you are a convinced esotericist. Know that mine comes from Mary. We shall see which power, whether satanic or Marian, will triumph in the end. In the meantime, we will go to bed, you and I. I wish you peaceful sleep. As for me, under the mantle of Heavenly Mother and in the most lovable heart of Jesus, I assure you, on the grounds of greater anger, that I have never been as serene as I am today. I will continue, Mr. Bergoglio and dear cursed Freemasons, to say Mass every day. I will confess. I will lead the little Catholic remnant around the world even more. I have already learned that they want to continue inviting me to America, despite the dismissal. I will increase evangelization to keep the faithful in sound doctrine by preventing you and all the enemies of the Church from singing victory. I will intensify prayer, especially of the Rosary, and catechesis on Radio Domina Nostra. If I have been a bad dream, Mr. Bergoglio, I will become a nightmare. And if 1,000 times you censure me, 1,000 and more times I will be reborn somewhere. Perhaps only my vestments will change, but even that is not certain, since there are many already faithful who, having learned that the criminal sanction and on the civil level is administrative, have already said they are willing to pay any fine in this regard as long as I do not remove the cassock. For that matter, I might as well wear another religious habit, not necessarily the classical one, And in the meantime, Mr. Bergoglio and cursed Freemasons, rotten vipers that you are in the Vatican, what will you do in the meantime? Will you also reduce Father Enrico Bernasconi to the lay state? And for what delicta graviora? And then the other, and then the other, and the other. Again, what a disgrace you are in that sad Vatican. You are a disgrace to humanity and to the Church. Mr. Bergoglio, if you, on behalf of Satan, deliver to me a mendacious and false sanction, as I have shown, unjust and malevolent, I, on behalf of the Blessed Virgin, deliver to you, in turn, an omen. This sanction marks the coming announcement of great victories. A faithful from Emilia just now wrote to me. He can't stand this infamous impostor for any longer, but the habit of the priest is sown on your heart, and we will all always see you as our priest, true and courageous, who fights against the false and cowardly apostates. And a faithful from Tuscany. We kiss your priestly robe that drips with blood, so sacred in the eyes of God and all of us. And another believer from Veneto. This is a stroke of the tail of the infernal serpent, who could no longer restrain, limit, and hinder in any way your saving and bursting apostolic mission. With this risky and absolutely unspeakable move, Bergoglio has further revealed himself for what he is. From Uruguay, Father Alexander, remember that you have received priestly power from God and His true church. Do not give in to the false church of Bergoglio. He is the virus of the devil. From Sardinia, your cassock laid on the altar, what a great sign. From Africa, the wind of the Holy Spirit is blowing on you, and you are, and remain, our spiritual guide. From Romania, dear Father, you are writing the greatest story of holiness. From Colombia, humanly, it is sad to see how the Church has been reduced. You, however, will always be stronger because Our Lady is with you. You have all the graces you need for the salvation of souls. From the Marches region, Father Alexander, you have that cassock sewn into your heart. The battle is now on. From Milan, Bergoglio, the hour is coming when you will give an account to God of your corrupt actions in the service of ecclesiastical Freemasonry. Father Alessandro is a holy priest and deserves all our support. I will conclude with another message from my beloved Sicily. Our Lady does not want you to touch this beloved son of hers and defender of the true church. Tremble, you accursed enemies. Mr. Bergoglio, I know you hesitated to sign. A couple of omens tried to intimidate you. In the end, you did. You will regret it. For every tiny drop of ink with which you signed, not mine, but your condemnation and that of the Satanist, Masonic, false church. I forgot. Long live Pope Benedict. Long live the Catholic Church. Long live the Cross. Long live Mary. Victory is ours. Victory is certain. Rome will be liberated. And you, Bergoglio, in time, will remain a pale, sad memory of the most miserable attempt to occupy the Petrine throne. Little Catholic remnant, courage and onward. We will win under the banner of the cross of Mary Immaculate. I am here, more motivated than ever. We shall see what will happen. This is the beginning of the end of a corrupt and soggy church, whose hours are now numbered. This unjustified condemnation, so violent, serves to flush out these poisonous rotten vipers, these soggy snakes, so that they may be thrown out of the Vatican. Praise be to Jesus Christ and on earth, Mary.